Facebook Ads Retargeting Guide. In this video, we're going to answer the question, what is the highest ROI generating activity that you can run in your online advertising? And the answer is retargeting campaigns. And so you may be wondering, why is this so effective? And I want to start out by talking about the double dip. Now, you're familiar with the double dipping, right? Let's think about it, and I'm going to show you my age as we go through it. So I have this friend named George. And George is one of those guys who finds himself at a party, doesn't think anybody's looking, and he goes to town on some dip. He dips, he takes a bite, and then he dips again. He basically double dips in the chip dip, which is a major faux pas, not something that I would do, not something I want a friend of mine to do either. And so there's a confrontation that develops. This person comes up to George and says, "Hey, did you just double dip that chip?" George is playing innocent. "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" He says, "You double dipped the chip." He says, "Double dipped? What are you even talking about? What does that even mean?" The guy says, "You dipped the chip, you took a bite, and you dipped again." And George says, "So what's wrong with that?" "Well, it's like putting your whole mouth right in the dip. From now on, just take one chip, dip it, and then take another chip. That's why you don't want to double dip, because double dipping is gross and it's unacceptable behavior." So needless to say, George and I are no longer friends. Some would say we were never friends in the first place. But it helps me explain what retargeting is. So what is retargeting anyway? Retargeting is like double dipping your website visitors. They come to your site, they visit, they poke around, and then you market to them again using retargeting. Now, if you're like me, you'll find that double dipping your audiences is a much more acceptable and sanitary way of double dipping. And also, it's one of the highest return on investment activities that you can do, because somebody who's already familiar with your product or service, somebody who already knows somewhat about you, marketing to them again gives you opportunity to have them come back for more. And of course, in the online advertising industry, we call it something different. We call it retargeting or remarketing, and in many ways, it is the most relevant form of online marketing that you can do. So let me give you an example as to why it's relevant. You know that time that you went on the internet and looked for shoes, and then that shoe ad followed you around? There's pictures of that shoe over and over again. The ad unit just kept on following you around until you either bought or you basically just gave up or you cleared your cookies so they'd never find you again. Yeah, that's remarketing. And sometimes it's beneficial. Sometimes it's annoying because maybe you bought it elsewhere. Maybe those people didn't have the greatest pricing on it. But generally speaking, you're going to do the action they want you to take, buy those shoes, much more frequently than somebody who has never been to the website. And so basically, on the internet, your past behavior is a strong predictor of your future activity. And when you're retargeting, you are betting on that future activity being a purchase being made. Okay, so sometimes we find that annoying, but for the most part, it's a valuable reminder of our browsing history and our purchase intent. Sometimes, and many times, we'll be browsing something on our mobile phone and we'll forget about it. And we'll come back days later and maybe not remember the website or forget to type something in. Well, that retargeting ad will bring you back right where you left off and help you finish the transaction or help you do the next step that you need to take in order to become a customer or purchase somebody's services. And not only that, but these ads are highly relevant because they're based on your behavior. And because they're so relevant, they generate a stronger return on investment than I'd say 99% of other advertising campaigns that you can run. And so if you only have a small amount of money or a small budget to spend on online advertising, this is where I'd place my bet. And the rest of this video guide is going to show you how to do remarketing with Facebook ads. Okay, so first let's talk about how this works. So retargeting works as follows. You have this wizard kid who basically just sets up something in your account, pushes a few buttons, maybe waves their magic wand, and everything just works. People find you, you don't have to do anything. It's all magic, right? Okay, that was a joke, not a really good joke. I didn't even tell you what the punchline was, but all jokes or all senseless humor aside, retargeting has a logical explanation and a technical one. And so let me explain to you how it works in theory or from a logical perspective before I bore you with any of the details of the technical piece. So this is really how it works in theory. So let's talk about your behavior. You visit a website. Say that you visited datadrivenyou.com. While you browse through the content, you see what's available on that website. And next, what happens, or in the background, what seamlessly happens is the website owner reports your activity back to Facebook. So they're basically sending data back to Facebook with every page that you view. And this happens all the time to all of us. Pretty much everything we browse on the internet, our activity is being reported back to the person who owns the website. Not only that, but it's being reported back to these advertising platforms, which have the capability to chase us around the internet and get us to take some kind of action. The next thing is the website owner, they pay money again back to Facebook to show ads to you based on your behavior. So the advertiser is telling Facebook this person went to their site and browsed around, and then they're paying Facebook for the right to market to you again. That's basically how this thing works in a nutshell. And then what we want is we want you to click on that ad or not, and then we want you to take action or not. Basically, as an advertiser, they want to pay money because there's a really good chance that you're going to take an action or an above average chance compared to their other options. And so remarketing is basically saying, let's revive this relationship. Let's keep this thing alive. Let's go and see if we can make this thing turn into a transactional relationship that is beneficial to both the advertiser and the person who visited. Because that website owner really wants to see you again. Think of yourself as Cinderella and the website owner is Prince Charming. Okay, stay with me here. Maybe not the best analogy, but it will make sense when I go through it. So at the end of the night, you lose your magic and your shoe. And Prince Charming, he had a good time. He wants to talk to you again. He wants to give you your glass slipper back, okay? Not that far-fetched, not that hard to understand. Well, how is he going to get you that slipper back? They have to run around the internet trying to find you, trying to get you to buy that glass slipper from them. They want you to take action, and they want to find you. And he won't stop doing this until he finds you, or until you get a restraining order against him, or until you clear your cookies and basically say, stop, enough is enough. And that's how retargeting works without getting into all that technical gibberish. Okay, so what's the difference between retargeting and remarketing? I might have already slipped up in this video a few times and said remarketing when we're talking about retargeting, and that's just because I use these terms interchangeably. Maybe you've heard about this type of advertising before, but you use the term remarketing instead. That's very possible because I do that all the time. Well, if you've heard the term remarketing before and you've heard my definition of retargeting, you're probably wondering what's the difference. Well, what is the difference? Well, I could get into a long explanation about the differences, but honestly, it's the exact same thing. Retargeting and remarketing are the same concept. They're generally used interchangeably to denote the same thing. It's like potato and potato, or if you're Dan Quayle, potato with an E at the end. Now that's one of those ones where I'm showing my age. I'm a 90s child, and that was the funniest thing in the world when the vice president of the United States could not spell potato the right way. Okay, vice presidential politics aside, some will argue that remarketing refers to email campaigns, and they are wrong. They are people who are wrong because really remarketing is something that I use all the time, something that I learned directly from Google to describe a campaign where you follow somebody around on the internet and try to get them to buy their glass slipper after midnight because they turned into a pumpkin. Google, the largest online advertising platform in the world, calls this remarketing. Facebook calls it retargeting. Let's just join in the middle and say they're pretty much the same thing. Don't worry which one you use. But of course, we're talking about retargeting here because I want to avoid confusion and try to keep the term consistent. But if I say remarketing, just know I'm talking about the same thing. Okay, capiche? So remarketing is obviously about online advertising as well. Okay, so how much does retargeting cost? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is the highest value activity that you can run for your online advertising campaigns. It is the lowest hanging fruit you can pick. And the exact amount you're going to spend is going to cost far less than the rest of your advertising campaigns. However, it's difficult for me to give you an exact number of how much you can spend because this is going to vary based on several factors. It's going to vary based on the audience size you're targeting and how big your remarketing list is. It's going to be different for a few hundred as opposed to a few 100,000. How often you want to target these visitors and for how long. If you run these ads over and over again, it's going to be more expensive than if you do it one time. Also, are you willing to pay a premium to reach these people? Not only that, but we also need to factor things like your product price, how much you're comfortable spending to acquire a new customer, and again, how does this fit into your overall strategy and how much time do you want to dedicate to getting this right? All those factors combined are going to affect how much you spend in retargeting. But what I will tell you is that overall, this is going to be a high return on investment for your business. And I'd go as far as to say, if you only have a limited budget, I would put it all into a retargeting campaign. Okay, so how do you set up retargeting in Facebook ads? This is where we need to get a little bit more technical with what we're doing. So I'm not going to tell you how to write code. This is not a coding class, but code is involved. There's some kind of code needs to go on your site in order to make this happen. And so Facebook has this thing called a pixel. Facebook has the Facebook ads pixel code, and you take that, you put it onto your site, you put it on every page of your website. Then I use something called the Facebook Pixel Helper to verify that it's working properly. So as you can see here, I am tracking page views. I am tracking everything that comes along on Jefflytics and Data Driven and all the different websites that I have. And then from there, you target an audience based on people who visited your website. And so this is how I'd create a retargeting campaign for Jefflytics. Pretty straightforward. Pixels on the site. Pixel is being tracked inside Facebook ads. I use that as my audience and I am good to go. I am retargeting in a nutshell. Now what I will tell you is that's by far the most basic form of retargeting that you can do. And of course, you can get way more advanced with your audiences and your definitions. And I would say as you get more advanced with your advertising, as you want to get even more return, you will want to learn and implement these advanced techniques. But for this video, I only have so much time, so we're going to focus on how do you pick the low-hanging fruit. Okay, so what does it look like when somebody retargets to you on Facebook ads? Well, let me show you some examples. The first one is going to be one of mine. This is something I've run for Data Driven, driving people back to my Facebook Ads Mastery course. And as you can see here, we already know that they're interested in Facebook ads because they went to the sales page and they're interested in the course itself. And so we acknowledge that in the ad itself. And then we acknowledge their interest, we reference something familiar, and this is an ad that works. You can see right here, somebody said, well, if you're going to throw this ad personalized at me, I have to at least consider it. And you want to throw your copywriter a royalty check because it worked on me. And that's how remarketing should be. Basically, somebody looked at something, they forgot about it, they tucked it away in their busy life, and you're just bringing them a reminder that you exist. You're bringing them a reminder that, hey, you felt something about this. You felt enough to click in the first place. Come on back. Let's talk. Let's see if it's going to be a good fit. And yes, that is a high percentage opportunity because you are acknowledging somebody's status. And when you do this right, it feels like it was personalized for the person who received it. And you know what? That is really nice. Personalized advertising feels pretty good for both people involved. Doesn't feel dirty, doesn't feel sketchy. You're basically just telling them, hey, if you're going through this, let's talk some more. Another guy, Brian Dean from Backlinko, I got this ad after I visited his sales page. Why did it work? Because I visited his page and I didn't take action. And this ad reminds me that it's going away soon. And so that one is based on the amount of time that I have left to make a decision. Another one, Traffic and Funnels. I'd watched one of their videos and now I'm on their retargeting list for the rest of my life. This one came out after Thanksgiving and they hooked me in by being irrelevant, by writing some gibberish in the ad. And that's something where you'd have to click through in order to see more because you want to see why they spelled it wrong. What's going on? What's this all about? It caught my eye. And so because I watched the video and I didn't take action, they use this clever way to re-engage me. And that's how they get people to get down their funnel and get them further along when it comes to advertising. Okay, so I just used the word funnel there. What is a funnel? What is a Facebook retargeting funnel? Well, rather than tell you what a funnel is, I'm going to ask you the question, when and how should you use retargeting? Because I like to think of advertising, instead of talking about a funnel, I like to look at it as states of awareness. And so if we look at overall the journey that somebody goes through from being unaware of what we do to becoming a customer, there's a long journey ahead of them. And I look at it as a playing field, and you want to go from unaware to fully aware because those are the people who are going to purchase because they're aware of what you do and they're ready to take that awareness to the next level and become a customer of yours. Okay? Well, guess what? If you're taking somebody who's unaware and you're trying to get them to purchase from you, it's difficult. It takes time. It's difficult for many reasons. One is they might not be interested, or they might just be window shopping, or they're not ready yet. Second one is at some point there's a natural drop-off from unaware to most aware because not everybody's going to buy a product or a service at the end of the day. And so there's a big drop-off when that happens. And so you have your work cut out for you if you want to take somebody who's unaware of you, turning them into a customer. If you want to do it with any kind of frequency, or if you want to do it on any kind of timeline, it is going to take a lot of effort and your work is going to be cut out for you and very difficult. Okay, it's a lot easier. It's less difficult when somebody's already solution aware. They know that you have a solution and they're deciding whether they want to buy from you or somebody else. It's even easier when they're really already aware of you or at least aware of your products and they're making a decision of whether they're going to buy or not. So product aware is essentially somebody who goes to your site, checks out your product page, and ends up saying, yep, I'm going to buy from you, or no, I'm not going to buy from you. It's basically a binary decision at that point, and binary decisions happen much more frequently than a 1% conversion rate or a 0.5 cent conversion rate. Binary is 50-50, flipping a coin. Is this going to work or is this not going to work? And so when you're remarketing, you're trying to get more binary decisions to happen. And guess what happens? The costs go way down. And so when we look at these binary decisions, it's much cheaper than if we take a really difficult decision for somebody to make. It's much more expensive if we need to make somebody make more decisions, and that's what's going to happen when somebody's unaware. It's basically a logic tree where you can lose them at any point in time. They can say, I'm not ready for this thing, or it's not the right time for me. That happens a lot when somebody's unaware. It happens a lot less often when they're fully aware of what you do, and they're basically saying, am I going to buy from you or am I not? And so when you saw my remarketing ad, that was successful. The return on ad spend was about 10 to 1. And so for every $1 I put in, I made $10. And it was basically just reminding them, you have a decision to make. This is going away. Are you in or are you out? And so many people might call this a Facebook retargeting funnel. But I like to look at this more as an awareness journey because the difference is one is fed by gravity, your funnel, and the other one is fed by earning trust. And when you run a retargeting campaign, basically you're starting out by going after your most aware audience. And when somebody has awareness of you, that is equal to trust. And when they have trust, there's a much higher chance of them taking action because it's binary at that point. And of course, as you get more advanced with your advertising, I would recommend that you create different advertisements for all shapes and sizes, all different types of audiences, all states of awareness. And that is the next level with your advertising, basically capitalizing on this low-hanging fruit that you have for the first campaign, the one that's going to work really high return on investment, and then just building out more of these, more and more, getting bigger audiences, getting more people who are in the awareness funnel for you so you have better chance of converting more people even sooner because you did your work, because you brought them down that field, you helped them progress to the point where they're ready to make a decision. Okay, so I'm going to close out with a few retargeting strategies. Here's one for e-commerce. So do you want to know a dead simple way to make more revenue for your online store? I call it the upseller. And basically what you do is you use the Facebook pixel, retargeting, and Facebook events to denote a purchase or setting this up based on the URL of your cart thank you page. And whenever somebody buys, whenever somebody purchases from your store, you show them an ad for another product that they can buy right away that's complementary to the product they just purchased or basically an upgrade to that purchase, and you upsell them on the next thing. So you use this play called the upseller and you just say, okay, you bought now, buy again. We're going to show you an ad that says you should buy again. Maybe we'll give you a discount. Maybe we'll give you something that's an incentive to take action now. But studies show the best chance that you're going to have of getting somebody to buy from you is immediately after they just bought from you. Now, it sounds counterintuitive. You might think, well, they don't have any money left. But trust me, once somebody's in the buying mode, once they have their credit card out and they're ready to purchase, the next purchase is not so far-fetched, and people do buy in droves. They do buy things in really tight clusters, and you can take advantage of that by doing an upsell campaign and immediately targeting them to buy the next thing, the missing link, the next piece to what they're doing based on their behavior, targeting them on Facebook ads. Okay, so what if you're generating leads for your business? Well, I recommend finding an audience with a problem and then sharing your solution, your product or service, as a solution. And so you want to show them how you're going to solve their problems. I call this one the Ice Ice Baby because Vanilla Ice famously said, if there was a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Check out the hook when my DJ revolves it. And basically, this is my tribute to Rob Van Winkle, Vanilla Ice, and that Ice Ice Baby song, which is part of my 90s childhood as well. And so if they've got problems, you solve it, you know how to do it, you're remarketing, you're basically saying, hey, raise your hand if you've got problems. If you're going to my website, if you're looking at certain content that indicates that you have a problem, I'm going to remarket to you the solution. And it's as simple as that. Their behavior helps you understand where they're at in the spectrum of awareness. You go after the most aware people first, and then the next most aware, and the next most aware. You go through those awareness cycles, starting at the end and then working your way backwards, and that is how you generate a strong return on investment from your advertising. Now, if you go after only unaware people or cold traffic, it's much more challenging. You really have to be an expert, and you have to have some really strong techniques in order to make that work. So start with the low-hanging fruit, get some momentum in your ads, and then guess what? There's plenty of time for you to scale on Facebook ads to go after cold audiences, but get the momentum first, get the return on investment by going after these retargeting campaigns. Okay, so that's it for this video. And just to summarize what we covered here in a few quick bullet points. First of all, remarketing is like double dipping to your audience. And your highest ROI activity is going to be advertising to that house audience. Retargeting is very easy to set up using the Facebook pixel. I showed you what it looks like for my install and how quickly I created that campaign. And the simplest thing you can do is start by re-engaging your visitors and then getting more advanced over time. And finally, here's my call to action for you. Every day that you wait to do this, you're leaving money on the table. I hate to use hyperbole like that, but it's true. Every day you wait, every day that you wait, every day that you stop and hold off on retargeting, every day you wait till it's perfect, you are leaving money on the table. If you didn't hear me before, hear me again. This is the highest return on investment activity you can do in your online marketing.